think we're live. I didn't get one of those weird pop-ups to say that this is recording or anything, so I'm assuming we're live. Well, welcome everybody to the OriginTrail V6 Summer 2022 AMA. Hype it up.
That's right. We're doing this thing, guys.
That's right. Well, thanks for joining everybody. It's been a while. How's everybody's summer been going? It's summer for everybody here, right? I'm really bad at understanding how the world works from a geography standpoint where people are, but I'm assuming it's kind of like summer for most people. Well, I know it's you. All right. So let's open this up. Let's see. I have to open with this just because of a tradition. But can somebody tell me, when can we expect a Binance listing? Have you made any progress in this direction yet? Everybody's quiet. All right, let's go to number 2. You want to say something, Tomaž?
I think I can pull up the exchange response in the middle of the night in my sleep. It's pretty much been a very similar tune since the quite a few years now. So it's very hard for team to comment on these topics, and it's up to the discretion of everyone to kind of communicate things when and how they deem the most appropriate, and so it's quite literally out of our hands and impossible to comment as well.
Exactly. And so just had to ask it just out of tradition. So there you go, everybody. Right. There's your answer. Amos, you want to fire it off at the first question?
I'm gonna take it away, buddy. You sit back, relax, have a good time. Let Amos take over. Guys, today I'm broadcasting from the inside of the OriginTrail testnet. We are on our way to the moon. And I have one question to ask the OriginTrail team right now. And this is coming in from Shay. This is a question. As a passionate community member, I will be happy if the company establish a business development hub for dApps and projects using the power of the DKG that could really help non-technical entrepreneurs. So is there something in the works that can help these individuals?
All right, I'll take a first stab. Yeah, actually, there's plenty in works for these kinds of businesses that you mentioned that would help non-technical people start using DKG. And actually, one of the kind of very useful elements, useful fundamentals, is going to be revealed, or shall I rather say, the initial phases will start in the coming weeks. As we release the project Magnify. And project Magnify essentially is going to allow anybody to deploy any search result, hence asset, on the DKG. Essentially, you're going to be capable of owning the search result. And these search result can stem from the Metaverse. They can come from the social media, music. I know you're passionate about music, so you can also help musical entrepreneurs to come into the community and then make their assets more visible. They can essentially create additional business opportunities for themselves, and it all stems on it's all underpinned by the upcoming fundamental layers or transformations of the OriginTrail technology. And going from V5 to V6, essentially, it is a transformation. It's not just an incremental update. The OriginTrail is transforming itself. It's not only going to be useful for the enterprises, which needed a lot of, I would say, red carpet treatment to be onboarded into using OriginTrail, starting with the V6 rollout, and even before the mainnet, it's going to be possible even for those less technologically savvy to start using the DKG. And of course, we're going to roll this out in phases, and hopefully we're going to see all of you guys also within the community to onboard yourself onto the project Magnify, because we really count on the community to provide the first initial feedback as we test both the V6 second stage and then the mainnet, and of course the additional service layers that are going to be built on top. And this also kind of ties into the staking that we talked about. How can you, make your assets more visible by using Trace as a utility token as a stake behind it to be to essentially increase exposure for your assets. And these topics are very much linked to other projects that are currently happening in the wider Metaverse communities, even social network communities. So the Metaverse, it's closely linked to some of the things that our peers within the Polkadot community are working on, such as Engine Affinity, and also the social network experiment, which will hopefully gain a Web3 version of it. Is one of such interesting project is called Project Liberty. Also, Project Liberty and the likes of the Project Liberty have a very good, I would say, ties, at least at the conceptual levels, to the Project Magnify, because it essentially brings useful search results as assets, as ownable asset into both worlds, both Metaverse and social media. And again, both of these categories are very well known to just about any vanilla people. Perhaps that's not the best expression, but essentially people who want to use DKG without having to invest themselves into learning about semantic technologies, etc.
So with Project Magnify, really, I guess, allowing for the OriginTrail community members to go into overdrive as it relates to participating in the utilization of the version 6 testnet and whatnot. Is this also going to be tied with the Evangelist program? Because with Magnify making it easier for people to interact with the program, with the technology stack, it seems like this would coincide nicely with a program that allows people to then go out and talk about the technology. So is the Evangelist program seeing acceleration because we're reaching technical maturity?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, perhaps the Evangelist program, the way you, I guess, perceive it, is a little bit wider than any of the programs that have been in course so far. And essentially, evangelism is built into the V6 and built into the project Magnify, because it incentivizes people to also expose the assets, expose the search results that they create. So every asset created becomes a marketing outlet for the DKG and for the project Magnify and for the artist and for you as a creator of an asset. That said, of course, during the rollout of the second phase and the mainnet of V6, we're also going to release, I guess, a continuation of the bounty program, which is going to extend well beyond the kind of initial boundaries, which were it was intended mostly to test and to essentially try to break the early versions of the V6. The extension of the bounty program or grant program is going to essentially incentivize those creating useful assets already in phase 2, and then those useful assets, of course, need to gain life on the mainnet. So there's going to be a chasm that we're going to have to jump over, but of course, the bounty program and the grant that is going to be released for that is going to help everybody involved in the second phase to just jump ship and bring all the assets into the mainnet. And this, of course, also entails all the assets that were created in the past for the enterprises. But that's our job, because we, as Trace Labs, as a core developer, we have established relationships with these companies, and that area in particular also looks very sweet. But it's an enterprise play. It's a little bit different.
Understood.
Awesome.
GT buddy, you want to take over here?
Yeah, you always have a knack of answering part of the questions that are coming up later on within one question. So you may have some overlap for more questions coming up. Just throwing that out there. But so which bridge will be used to bridge TRAC over to OTP? And it's an interesting question, right? Because one of the things Polkadot does better than almost anything out there is interoperability, and also removes any of those centralized bridges, so to speak. And we got technologies like Moonbeam out there, for example, right, where can help easily port assets over. So when it comes time to actually spin up our node and connect it to OTP, and we need to bridge some TRAC over to to stake, well, to put in there to secure the chain, what would be the way that we'd be moving these over to OTP? Would it be like a Moonbeam? Would it be something native on OTP?
Yeah, that's a very good intro, by the way, on the bridges situation. So the advanced features that Polkadot provides and all of these, well, basically interoperable capabilities of sending the tokens from one parachain to another and connecting outside of the realm of parachains. With this, you get also increased capabilities, options, but also like a little bit more complexity. So to not hijack this particular AMA, we're actually releasing an RFC, which will entail all of these details. And that's coming up next week. So it's in the final, basically, process of crafting. But essentially, in one sentence, we will start with kind of like a standard solution that the teams are implementing for now, which is based on the chain bridge palette, which is basically a dedicated bridge for trace for the OT parachain. That's the idea. And then a lot of the other details are going to be outlined in the RFC. So like I said, better not hijack now.
Great. Awesome. So this, Žiga, you kind of jumped into this a little bit, but somebody asked, at Davos, Gavin Wood and Frank McCord announced Project Liberty in the social graph. To me, this sounded like something that could be built on top of the DKG. Have you thought about building, or has someone reached out to you about building decentralized social graph on the DKG? Frank also has said to reach out if someone was already working on something like it. Have you spoken with Frank, Gavin, about the DKG? I mean, it did, like you said, you touched upon it before. It kind of like anytime you have like social platforms, I mean, you think DKG is a perfect fit for that, right? Because it creates those connections and those, you know, from person to person. But have you reached out to Frank McCord, or have you guys thought about more about what do you want to, if you want to try to get involved in Project Liberty?
OriginTrail has always been about users, so those creating content and those essentially providing the most important fiber for the growth of the internet, to also be the owners of not only data, but essentially something that can be owned. So the assets which are encapsulating the either NFTs or even physical representation of physical assets, your work that is being expressed through social media, your art, your music, etc. And as such, it's highly complementary with such projects. And we talked with the project Unfinished. And in the next couple of months, there are going to be a lot of brainstorming sessions, both offline and online, and most likely we're also going to be joining the team. So the Unfinished I think it's called Unfinished Project. Yeah, I think it's called Unfinished Project Unfinished. We're going to join them in New York to discuss the future of the Project Liberty, and how also OriginTrail can play a role in supporting such a project. I see it as a really a long-term project, not something that will come to fruition in just a couple of months, and therefore they also need to ingest as much feedback as possible, and also look into the existing substrate technologies and also the parachain technologies, including OriginTrail, in order to be quicker to the market. And OriginTrail, we feel strongly, has a lot of very useful fundamentals already in existence, which they can use. And yeah, we're talking with them, and hopefully we're going to see them deploy something interesting in a not that much distant future.
And you guys have always been kind of ahead of Web3 in a sense too, from a development standpoint. Like, I mean, you've always been like 2 years ahead of like where the rest of the tech is. So, I mean, a lot of that stuff is still just even starting off, even this like Project Liberty and stuff. Like they're kind of starting from ground zero somewhat. So it'd probably take some time before you can really, I would think, like be able to start thinking another layer on top of that, getting into the DKG and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I have my train ready here for them, and anybody who wants to use a decentralized knowledge graph. I mean, social graphs are, I would say, one very natural fit to the DKG, and even an even better fit if we consider social graphs to be used in the Web3 context. It's an offer they cannot refuse to an extent the Polkadot was an offer we could not refuse when we implemented another layer 1 onto the DKG. So it seems that, you know, when things make sense, then it's very much probable that somewhere in the future we will converge towards them, or, you know, vice versa.
Yeah, and I mean, we've already started seeing mainstream recognition of this fact when we saw that article came out about OriginTrail, you know, being used in the social media and apparel industry. I can't remember the author's name. I think it was Turn. I can't remember his name, but he spoke about that. So yeah, I absolutely agree. Just to hop on to the next question here, it says, can you elaborate on the magnitude of adoption and expectation towards publishing? As Žiga mentioned, by 2023, we should be seeing 100K per day.
100K per day. Okay. This was a context of V5. So the context of V6 transforms everything, because it's not only about the data, it's about bringing in notions that allows us to essentially encapsulate information, encapsulate also the already existing Web3 assets into essentially URLs and other elements of URLs which substitute publishings onto the DKG, and therefore the maximum market, of course, also expands from there on. And this is the potential. We talked about hundreds of thousands of publishings. In the past, we called them jobs, which even in the past, I wouldn't say it was the right naming. Publishing definitely is the right one. And transitioning towards not only the publishings, which, you know, do not bear a component of ownership, towards the assets which you can own, the potential, of course, also expands. It's interesting to talk about like 100,000 per day in the context of V5, because V5 is coming to an end. So I would I don't even recall what exactly was the context of you know, the per day part of the thing. I think it was mostly the 100,000 publishings, or 100,000 you know, active publishing in a year or so.
Okay.
And that number, of course, can be easily surpassed by 2023. Most likely by tenfold, if we're talking about the absolute numbers, not that much per day or per second. That's impossible to anticipate. But definitely the overall market for publishing expands, because the publishing itself is encapsulated into an ownable asset, into a URL.
Right. Great. This is probably more of a Branimir question, I would assume, but please explain how you foresee future of tokenomics, role of Lambda, and profitability of nodes. And I mean, just overall, I think what this question is pretty much getting at, and anybody not familiar with what Lambda was supposed to be, was a way for nodes to automatically adjust to market conditions as far as costs to upload data to the network, for example, and what node holders would be willing to take for those jobs and accept for those, publishings. I gotta stop saying jobs. But is there any more with V6? What can we expect with the Lambda, or is it even called Lambda anymore? Or how can we expect this stuff to kind of automatically, from algorithmically or whatever, adjust to market conditions on the network?
All right, that's a kind of a very long question, but I'll try to address it in a couple of points that are direct. So the first important point is that in V6, the way the implementation works for publishing is different, and therefore it's going to be a bit of a different type of interaction for nodes in market, and it's going to be actually more efficient on the technical level. So having that said, Lambda stays, so it's there, and that's a parameter. I mean, and it's a necessary parameter because without it, you would not be able to have your node sort of influence anything in terms of price. So the point of Lambda is that you're able to pick what your node is ready to well, you know, do, or you know, what type of service price, if you might say. And then obviously then this whole group of nodes, all of the nodes together, formulate a market. And I'm sure we spoke about this many times before on this particular AMA format, or others as well. But basically the market forms around, well, supply and demand. So however, not to go back into that same story, there's going to be a bit of the difference in the way the market works with V6, and you guys will get to see that firsthand when it gets launched on the testnet. And there's some really great improvements, again, very technical under the hood, but also there's a bit of a difference on how it affects Lambda. However, you can see the same principle remains. That's, let's say, point number one. Point number two, which is, you mentioned the word tokenomics, which is, I guess, really important to see here as well, is that going with V6 to the OriginTrail Parachain, we get all of the benefits of the OTP tokenomics that get into play. So it's apart from having the component of trace in the game, there's also a big component of OTP, which is actually the DKG incentives. And there's going to be also obviously more information shared on that also. So there's like a bunch of RFCs that are lined up, and they're going to be coming out in one by one as things come out. But essentially, one of the things there is that the incentives are created in such a way that they support positive activity for the DKG, for the ODN, which is also running a node. So there's, in terms of tokenomics, there's a whole new terrain which is going to influence basically anybody running a node, all of the node runners. And then what's further interesting is that when it comes to trace tokenomics, back to that part of the terrain, there's new features in the tokenomics such as keyword staking, things like actually delegating tokens to nodes. And because of all these new mechanisms, again, to try to avoid complexity, there's also more opportunity, more value actually being created by the network, and therefore more value being distributed among the actors in the network, which again involve the new features that are coming out. So all things considered, to sum it up, the mechanisms change slightly, but Lambda is there, stays. Market still is a market. There's no lever that somebody can pull and change the market conditions. It's just every node has their own way of setting up how they work, and all to collectively form the market, and therefore the price. And then specifically, finally, to the question you asked about automating and on these reactions, immediately with 6.0 we don't get these features right away yet, but they're coming, well, I hope quite soon after, because the idea there is that again, we implement all of the learnings we had previously, and you guys might have seen the actual plugin for V5 that was being researched, which was actually about automatically adjusting Lambda. Well, the idea is now that that gets ported to the new paradigm that V6 introduces. And then once we have V6 and that on the market, we also have more automation in that control. There's a lot of details to it. I'm not sure if it's good to hijack, but like all of these details will be released in the documentation to come.
So it sounds like August is going to be a busy month with documentation, RFCs, and stuff like that.
Yes, we have 2 networks to run, 2 networks to understand how they work all together as a community. So, and then while we mentioned that, it's important to say that everybody's invited to participate in the RFCs. That's what they're called, requests for comments. All feedback is super welcome once they're out. So yeah, watch out for the RFCs coming out soon.
Actually, this is a great transition into a question that should have been on here. But so as you know, as OriginTrail gets into more of its public facing, I guess, utilization phase by developers and whatnot, what would you recommend for a budding developer as it relates to language choice? For example, if I were to choose Rust, I could definitely really focused on the Polkadot side of things and really get deep into helping build out the Polkadot ecosystem. If I were to go more with Solidity, you can work within Polkadot, but more so within the EVM, confined chains. So what do you think is most important for the OriginTrail ecosystem from a developer perspective? What do you want to see proliferating across the OriginTrail ecosystem as it relates to code-based languages and whatnot? yeah, those kind of infrastructural questions, I think is coming up because even me, I'm learning how to code now so I could build apps on the OriginTrail. Like I'm coding 12 hours, 14 hours a day, I'm studying, right? And I know that I took JavaScript because that's more front end and I could build, front end applications with that and still interact with a DKG. The OriginTrail team may want help at the lower levels of the stack or much.
All right, so I lost you for a second, but in the end, but I understood. The question is, let me repeat, is what would be like to see within technical community in terms of skill sets that could contribute to adoption and generally development of OriginTrail technology. Is that
right?
Good summary?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, cool. So, okay, the question on that is really sort of two-layered. One is the actual builders on top of DKG and Parachain, and then like let's say that's group number one, and group number two is really builders of, so people who dive into the code, building the DKG and building the Parachain and tools for in it, basically. And these two differ somewhat. So obviously, if you're building the DKG, if you're building tools which are integrated directly into it, and that's something that, by the way, also is going to be coming up. You're going to be able to build your plugins for the DKG. But also on the Parachain, like for example, writing a palette and substrate. Obviously, these the languages, the tools there are dictated by the technology. So for obviously, if you want to participate in Parachain development, that has to go into Rust substrate direction. For the DKG side of things, the current implementation is a Node.js implementation, actually. However, that's it's not bound to stay only Node.js. It's possible and very probably to have more implementations of the same protocol in the future. So basically a node running in Rust, for example. And because two different nodes can speak with each other, even if they're running into different languages, the clients effectively implement the same functionality. But not to go to that part. So basically, if you wanted to jump in the next year, let's say into Parachain, that's definitely Rust, and that's something if you are the proto persona here, Amos, I would direct you to learn that, or JavaScript. JavaScript is pretty powerful actually in the backend as well. It has some things that are like a little different from, or not so optimal as some more lower level languages, but it's also there's obviously some advantages to it as well. But if you're building on top of the DKG, on top of the Parachain, there's essentially more freedom. So you're able to choose what you want. And that's why with V6, we have a new set of clients coming out. So the first client is the JS client, obviously. And this actually changes the paradigm significantly because now we can do many more things on the DKG as a developer, but there's going to be clients in every interesting language, Rust, Go, PHP, you name it, .NET.
Right.
So, and these will enable you to basically pick whatever you want. And very similarly, that goes also for the Parachain. When it comes to the smart contracts, we've also started out, as we always do, in a very neutral way. That's one of the core principles of OriginTrail as the ecosystem. So the question of, let's say, should I go Solidity way or should I go Ink way or WASM something is actually, the answer is yes, you will be able to do as a developer any of these. So we have EVM support on the Parachain. That's actually a requirement for the DKG as of now, and in the future it will be. We're looking to actually optimize there as well, so that to remove the dependency on the EVM and use more newer virtual machines on the blockchain. But that will stay. It's not going to go away. So basically, you want to write a Solidity contract, you can run it on the OriginTrail Parachain. You want to do an in contract, once that's available, you will also be able to do that. So long story short, much more freedom on the side of builders on top of the DKG, but also significant freedom in anybody wanting to contribute to code. And by the way, we had some really good contributions over the past couple of months. It's been a very interesting and more exciting to work together with the community because of this. So I invite everybody to jump in and assist, especially in this latest stage. We're going to be, there's still things you can contribute, even though the DKG is feature locked. And same goes for the Parachain. So if there are developers out there wanting to jump in, to ping us. We're on Discord and Twitter.
Awesome. So for everyone that's been reaching out to me, you heard from the man himself. This is the direction you need to go. Real quick, we have you, Branimir. I don't want you to just disappear yet. Could you elaborate with an example on the advanced keyword search sticking possibilities?
Okay. Essentially, not to expand this topic too far to again hijack the meeting, but we're gonna have the ability to from V6 basically empower search using the tools of tokenomics. So basically, just to explain how search works, you go into Google today and type in a couple of words, right? And these are called keywords. For these keywords, there's a result that Google gives back to you, which is ideally the most relevant stuff related to those keywords. And the DKG is gonna basically, V6 gives very similar features in a decentralized way. However, what we get here is the ability to boost the ranking of a certain asset in the DKG search results by actually using tokens. So there you have it, basically boosting with, let's say, you have your asset on the DKG, and that means also asset being the search result. So that means you are able to boost that search result by adding additional tokens and having it signal stronger towards the nodes, which then sort this and basically put create a ranking based on that, but also on search relevance, of course.
Awesome. Thanks, Branimir. So this one kind of goes back from like a year ago. I remember in some discussions, actually throughout a few AMAs. What is a migration plan for V5 nodes? Will these older jobs auto pay out in V6, or we have to manually pay out V5 jobs in the future? And I remember once hearing you say, Branimir, that one of the hardest things of going to V6 was really just the upgrade path. It wasn't even like a lot of the logic was done, and a lot of the building was already happening. But I think one of the toughest nuts to crack was really the upgrade path from 5 to 6. Can you speak about that at all and what to expect?
Yes, it's the hard part of it is to really make sure to plan out for all of the possibilities. And but the good news about it is that we planned out the migration on all levels when we feature locked the version 6 last week. So essentially, it's taken a while, because while you iterate, while V6 changes, you're kind of migrating V5 to a moving target. And once you have that target locked, then things are very clear. So having that said, for example, the question on automated payouts. So to clarify, that would be the ability to continue to continue claiming tokens that a node should be rewarded from version 5, then when the node is live in version 6. Yeah. And a short answer is that this will stay completely the same. So basically, the nodes will again hold this information and will be able to receive rewards in the same, actually via the same smart contract on the same smart contracts on the existing chains. Now, when it comes to the migration path, so you guys have probably seen we're launching first on the OriginTrail Parachain. We start with a clean environment of the OriginTrail Parachain, and then extend by migrating all of the nodes to the existing chains that are there. So essentially, it's going to be kind of a octopus situation where the nodes start on one and then they expand further, and all of the existing nodes will perform let's say a migration procedure. Some of this will be automated, but it will not be fully automated. It has to be something obviously taken care of by the node runners, and we're looking to make it as simple as possible. It's essentially going to require some time, perhaps an hour or two, depending on how quick you are. But essentially, the idea is that you follow the process and make sure that it moves smoothly. So I guess that answers your question to an extent, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So basically, I mean, a lot of people, the jobs will just pay out the way they normally used to, and you would use the same tools. And this kind of speaks, this next question kind of speaks to this a little bit. Someone said, will the new quote OT hub be ready for V6 launch? Will it have all the features that the current OT hub has? And for anybody kind of newer to the project at all, and even in the last year, a lot of people might not fully understand that OT Hub was a third-party developed platform. It was made by someone in the community. So the team doesn't really do anything with OT Hub specifically, but to that, will there be something sort of replacing OT Hub that we can use to manage, at least we see like how many publishings are happening, or how many tokens are in our node, and how many publishings are happening on the network, something we can get a visual into the same way we did with OT Hub.
Yeah. So a couple of conditions before the new OT Hub can be done. And by the way, we are looking into ways how to support the OT Hub, which would not be built by us again, but by someone else. But in order for this to happen, two conditions. One, V6 needs to happen. So a very important precondition. And secondly, we need to come up with a process that is going to allow for an impartial selection of a group of people that are going to devise a new OT Hub, which is going to, of course, correspond to the new features of V6, and it's going to be used the same way as it was used in the past for similar purposes, and most likely for some additional things. But I think it's going to be a wisdom of those who are going to propose solutions, and I guess based on those proposals, also the selection will ensue. That will give us an answer how and what exactly will the new OT Hub do. And when we see that, when the let's say the community sees that, the community will be able to select the optimal proposal. Also, we internally are working on a few things that are going to help developers, builders, even ourselves to really use DKG in an optimal way. Much of that most likely is going to link back to Telemetry Hub, which Branimir can go more into detail, is going to get certain features that are going to also help both community and us, but most likely developers, builders on the DKG, whereas the OT Hub is going to remain still very much in the hands of the community, both the usability part and the development part.
Okay. All right, I think I'll take it from here. I have another question coming up. How do we see TRAC tokenomics becoming more promoted in the mainstream? I know we cannot speak about price, but with the real life value of OriginTrail that is providing, how will the team provide PR or visibility for people that are not aware of this sleeping giant project? Now, of course, outside the realm of price discussion, I do think that this has merit, because we did see more crypto ecosystems talking about OriginTrail, like Engine. That was amazing to see. We saw Kilt and all these other Polkadot ecosystems actually really realizing the power of the DKG. So is there more plans to really just get the name of OriginTrail and the token out there?
Yeah, sponsoring more football championships, more kickboxing competitions. I think that's one way of going about it. But no, we're OriginTrail as such is best promoted by putting it to use, in plenty of industries, because the usage itself is the best marketing for whatever product, let alone the community projects such as OriginTrail is. So the best way to market stuff is to get them to be used, and that will remain our main way of marketing the OriginTrail. Although it might be disappointing to hear that for many crypto attuned ears, but that's just the way it should be done, because it's cleaner. We're not building, OriginTrail is years ahead of many of those, excuse my French, shitcoins, which are there to be, scamming and then building Ponzi schemes. And I think the most recent crypto crisis very much teaches us that things in the Web3 community should not be done that way, and should be done the way OriginTrail has always been doing it. So promoting the ecosystem promoting the OriginTrail through usage, and we're just going to be doubling down on that direction. And to that end, we are planning more implementations. We even have, and I think that's a precedent within the any of the crypto communities for any crypto projects. Most likely, or probably, we're going to be seeing even ventures established specifically for the purposes of employing OriginTrail for some of the biggest humanitarian causes, or so for some of the biggest and most important challenges that exist in both supply chains and more widely in enterprise sector. And this is something that you simply don't see in other ecosystems. And this is our core advantage and core value proposition also towards other communities, other ecosystems. Thank you for mentioning the engine and the wider Polkadot ecosystem. That's the best way and the most sustainable way of going about it.
Yeah. Žiga has it written on the shirt, man. Obey Metcalfe's law. That's how you do it.
I thought that was actually Metcalf on the camera. Oh.
There you go. But it's the only way that really you have a sustainable path towards growing that adoption and then growing that awareness even, because as those kind of values start to multiply, that's how you can really start to roll with it, and then it just makes more and more and more and more sense to kind of go in that direction. So it's the second to none the best way to use your focus, energy, resources, and then also kind of echoing to the sentiment to the community or to anyone involved within the OriginTrail ecosystem, as we always kind of come out to say, and with Project Magnify right now also yet another chance to really get involved directly, and that's going to be the best possible way to really grow that awareness, grow that the value of the entire network, and grow the future value for yourselves as well as for others that are involved.
All right.
So if you really care about the progress of OriginTrail, you better start building.
Diddle.
Very true. I mean, there's going to be so many different options as to how you can do it, and it's just you also said before the article from the technology, the letter written by Ray. It followed that same logic, right? So it looks at how really stuff is functioning today, and how you have you have these kind of web 2 giants or whatever you call them, but when he broke it down technically, it's like it's a database and then there's an interface, and that's how they get the value, right? Well, with DKG, you have an internet decentralized database for any type of asset that can incredibly unlock a lot of different business models, which today aren't really possible. So builders can be from perspective of looking at how to really redefine the business models of today to make it more fair, more equitable, more interesting, more engaging, by leveraging these kind of core capabilities of the DKG. And that, on the I don't know, like on the topic of also kind of like how the social graphs overlay over the DKG. Not sure if I'm not spilling the beans here, but like we've, on one of our demos to validate the V6 functionalities, we've had a Twitter functionality demo happen and seen kind of how do you use this V6 infrastructure to deploy, or how you would use it to deploy something like a decentralized Twitter or decentralized social network. So it's like the overlay is very apparent, and that's why the importance of V6 getting launched and the importance of us focusing on the right things when it comes to assets, when it comes to how do we grow the adoption, is so crucial. Because if we don't, like, this is the best opportunity we have to really achieve that what we all want, the awareness, everyone realizing how DKG can be used. Because right now, but we gotta make that jump. So it's not just V5 to V6. We gotta make that, that big leap forward in our thinking about how these assets can be, what they are, what they can be, what they will be in the future. How can we get engaged? What can we build out of this? And that way we can kind of, as a community, really rally around it and make a beautiful thing happen. But we gotta make that kind of, ourselves also doing it every day.
I love that energy. You know what? I'm going to pass it over to Jason before we make you drop too many bombs over there. Jason, you go ahead and take the reins, buddy.
Sure. So for multi-chain support, will we see V6 launched on other chains, Rollups, Avalanche, Cosmos, Optimism, Arbitrum, etc., or will they be service using bridges from Polkadot? I guess I guess what the question's really asking is, now that we're going to see OTP coming online, and we're so tightly integrated within the Polkadot ecosystem, do you still see V6 or any need to at least right away expand out to things like Avalanche or Cosmos, Optimism? And if so, would the bridges be done through bridging through Polkadot ecosystem projects, or would it be using like third-party centralized bridges or something like that?
From the vision perspective, is you can look at it from like all of the above are possible avenues. OriginTrail is designed to be multi-chain. You look at what really what's the best way to follow that that path, and when you see what the capabilities of just within the Polkadot ecosystems are, with the addition of new parachains, where are the network effects going to happen, and where are they going to be the most efficient, and where can we kind of get those assets the most value? How can we make it the most usable? So it's not just a expansion of something for the expansion itself, but it needs to make sense in either, like it had with the Ethereum towards like Gnosis was, okay, we got resilience, we got some efficiency gains. With Polkadot now we got a whole bunch of other, like it's a powerhouse in terms of what really it did, only to be a part of the ecosystem, let alone to have our own kind of blockchain layer. And as we move forward to that, we're always looking at what's the kind of best possible alleyway to drive those network effects and to ensure the vision of OriginTrail is, it is as true as it was from day one as it is today. So which bridges, how do you do it? You just look at it one thing at a time. So those things get defined as you go, as you see why it makes sense on a strategic, or not strategic, maybe more of a impact level, and then you work out what the best path towards that is.
Speaking of making sense on an impact level, OpenPKG has been in development and has been talked about for quite some time. And I'll tell you, with scalability reaching its peak for OriginTrail, OpenPKG is really relevant and ripe for just the global consumption. So has there been any updates on the status of OpenPKG, and actually any more organizations seeking interest in this product?
There is interest because there is a lot of challenges still existing in the market of handling personal data, and we need to figure out what is the best pecking order for deploying all these solutions, because now we're talking about dozens of solutions already, and most likely some of the solutions have shorter path to the market, shorter lead time to the market. And OpenPKG, as much as it is both asked for and interesting, is in a way lower on the pecking order than some other products that are already in the market or very close to the market. That said, we're looking for ways to essentially deploy more solutions in a shorter time, not only through our own venture, but also by allowing other people to use the software as an open source software. But that does not go only for OpenPKG, it might go for some other products as well. But we're figuring out ways how to improve our capacity to roll out useful products onto the markets, given the certain constraints that still do exist. It's still one, we're still one team working on multiple products, even projects, and OriginTrail. So we always need to kind of hustle and figure out how to best operate in these boundaries given to us by the physics.
Maybe the one thing that is worth mentioning, though, that the principles of OpenPKG that we've kind of laid out within that are like the foundation of what V6 is and how you perceive assets. Like that's it's all about you being self-sovereign over
sovereign
your
identities,
assets.
right?
Yeah, exactly, right. So these things are enshrined in what V6 is, but then really, what's that go to market? Where venture A, B, like again, we're here talking such a big jump and such a big increase in capabilities that it calls for redefining a lot of different ways of how you're approaching these opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's a spot on response. I do believe that of course, Open PKG is still absolutely relevant, but as you said, you have different things in the chain of command here. Jason, do you want to go ahead and grab the next question, buddy?
Yeah, sure. Right. According to the distribution of OTP, V5 node runners are allocated 5 million OTP. Does the entire 5 million OTP get distributed to node runners who submitted their node IDs, or will any unclaimed OTP be kept for future auctions?
I mean, the same logic applies as with any other pools, more or less. I mean, it'd be ridiculous if one person applied and then one person just received the full 5 million, right? So you kind of, it is more about creating that that relevant, so in regards to how much the full amount of available node uptime was there, to compare that with the individual node that approaches, right? So you'll be looking at that. So if in the case of just 2% of all node runners applying, then just 2% of the entire amount is what should be distributed. I think that makes quite a bit of sense. And similar thing is has been done for OTP that was then designated towards for the DOT contributors for the crowd loan. Again, whatever's left over is getting transferred for the future auctions. So like similar concept.
Great. I literally was just looking at a question and it somehow just got.
I got it right here for you.
Okay.
The deadline to submit our node runner OTP claiming form is July 1st. However, we only know after the deadline if we've entered our OP wallet, node ID pair properly. Is there any way we can validate whether our forms were submitted properly and that we will receive the appropriate amount of OTP?
Yeah, maybe I can take that one. So, apologies, got a sneeze action here. So yeah, I remember hearing a question of two questions. I think it makes sense to point out here. One is the one, how can you validate that your application is okay? And the second one, what makes a valid application? And if I'm not mistaken, that we've received several questions on the support channels, which have been around the actual, what happens if somebody, let's say, does no longer have their operational wallet, so they cannot use it to sign in the form, basically, and submit for their node. So I guess it makes sense to address that now. That basically it's if that's the situation, when we believe it's an edge case, we didn't sort of create the form to cover that edge case, but it's no problem to use your management wallet for that purpose as well. So if you have, I hope you still have your management wallet. If you didn't lose that as well, then we cannot really do much. But like, it doesn't, in the end, it's possible to use the management wallet as well. That's part one. Part two, how would we be able to check? So basically with the application going through, when you're not receiving any sort of error, you can be sure that your application has passed. If you had any sort of issue in terms of an error popping up or something weird, a weird feeling, feel free to reach out to our support, and our team will will respond quickly and let you know how to proceed. So in terms of having a special dedicated interface where you can just come and check, okay, your entry is in there, there's no such interface. But yeah, like I said, if you didn't feel anything fishy happening, no errors popping up, you're good. If you really want to make sure or something went poorly, like an error or something, that can always happen, though probably very rarely, feel free to reach out. I think from what I've seen so far, we've been relatively quick to respond to all of the questions. But don't wait for the last day to apply with your node. So if you've been a node runner, please do it like as soon as you can. For example, this weekend is a good time. It's about a week ahead. So
not gonna lie,
you wait for the last day. Yeah, you have to do it, man. Like so if you wait for the last day, then we need a little bit of time to respond. Yep. But yeah, there's plenty of time, I think, left, and it's worth it to invest that time.
Yeah, great. Thanks for answering. I was somehow this question just got deleted and then re-added, so I was kind of thrown off when he asked that. But just real quick, what was the basis, the reasoning for using the operational wallets versus the management wallet? Is it from a technical perspective, it just made more sense?
Yeah, so it's from a technical perspective, let's say it's a little easier, because in that way it's so that goes basically back to the question of or story of blockchains being bad databases. So you want to get a bunch of info from there. You kind of want to make sure the queries you do, like for example, the activity of a wallet is useful, and because management wallets do a completely different thing than operational wallets in the system. Obviously, operational wallets make all the transactions that nodes do. That makes sense to get all of this information, and then when you have the operational wallet, it's very easy to find the management one. So in that sense, it's really helping to do it in kind of an easier way. And again, because blockchains are not really great databases, but both can be used. So like I said, if somebody's really lost their wallet and want to try and apply, you can do that. I hope you didn't lose your management wallet, but use that.
Okay, great. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. According to the latest media, we kind of already touched on this a little bit, but I'll ask it anyway because there might be more info. According to the latest Medium article, which was absolutely mind-blowing, by the way, we are expected to see Magnify go live with stage 2 of DKG V6 testnet. Will assets published on Magnify starting next week also be included in Mainnet? I don't know if anybody wants to take that one.
Yeah, I can take it. The short answer is yes. So the idea is that all of these assets that get created through the project Magnify in the first phase, which is not on the mainnet, actually get transitioned to the mainnet, so basically recreated. And the more info, obviously, and more details will be coming up. But essentially, the idea is for the project to obviously last much longer in the mainnet scope than in the testnet. This is just the beginning.
Awesome. All right, thanks. We're cruising right along now. As next one, we know very little about our partnership with Akala and the use of AUSD on our ecosystem. Can you elaborate on that? Are we expected to see OTP LP on Akala DApp or staking incentivization pools there? So I know you guys are working really closely with Akala. Do you see the OTP token being put onto their platform, used for some sort of lending pool, liquidity pool purposes and swaps or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, like that's the beauty of Polkadot, right? That you are immediately connected to all these different tools and all these different networks that are within the same ecosystem, so you can really leverage them or use them. The one thing that really kind of current focus obviously is the V6 and then the integration with the Parachain, and then kind of also connecting with other parachains, which is when these types of things will definitely be possible. And then as to how really like the exact unlocking of different capabilities will happen, that's still to be or will be communicated in due time. But it's definitely not just Akala, a great example of it, but also the wider Polkadot ecosystem is something that we're kind of keeping tabs on and seeing what really makes most sense and how can we again showcase the strength of DKG and drive that the value being built out.
Okay, seems like we only have a couple more questions left. So as Jason said, we're breezing through. We have seen the team speak and collaborate with other parachain winners in the past few weeks. Are you able to tell us any plans being made out there or any examples of applications of the DKG with them? Anyone?
I think we have generally touched the same question before in the forthcoming questions. There is a sea of opportunity, and sometimes it almost feels like within OriginTrail, I'm going to use the old word, but we're at the second course, and already we're thinking about the main dish, which is a cool thing to do. But still, let's enjoy every course we're having, because that's very important. We need to stick to the process, because the journey towards the main dish really is about doing every step right, and focusing and enjoying every stage is absolutely crucial here. But yes, back to your question, there are so many things that can be done. The question is in what sequence, and most likely it's much more to it than can meet the eye at the present moment, because in terms of maturity, OriginTrail hands down is the most mature project within the Polkadot ecosystem, and sometimes we need to wait out a little bit for little cousins to grow up, and then have them taken for a spin in our car, and vice versa on their bike. But yeah, definitely so many great solutions that are already being charted out there. The timing though is very crucial, because we need to make sure that all the things that are already here in terms of V6 Parachain, which is going to underpin V6, the increasing enterprise adoption, the increasing adoption coming from the V6, from Magnify and other projects, we need to harness that, and then all the rest will definitely come.
All right. So next question, what does Gavin Wood think of our parachain? I mean, I guess this person just wants to hear, does Gavin Wood know about OriginTrail? Does he care?
If I was him, I'd be jealous.
I guess that's a good enough
No
response.
further comments required.
That's a good enough response. Are we expected to hear other pharma applications of the DKG other than Atrus? How is development coming along in those regards?
It's going great. I mean, pharma obviously is one of the most important industries, or not only most important, but also most delicate, because a lot of our life aspects depends on pharma and healthcare. And what we've done for the humanitarian sector, for the non-governmental sector, also ties into the donor organizations, which have global supply chains in so many directions. And the same fundamentals, of course, can be easily replicated and are also looked into by many of those global companies in order to see how they can best exploit OriginTrail and the solutions based on OriginTrail for pharma in other segments. And this is most likely one of the biggest breakthroughs, not only within the OriginTrail ecosystem, but also in the Web3 communities widely, because so far no project has gone that far in so far as to use the pure Web3 fundamentals, which are truly permissionless, for an enterprise sector, let alone for the pharmaceutical sector, which is even more complex and even more tricky. And we've done it, and it's only the beginning.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I mean, actually, just to contribute to that, like my research on the entire pharmaceutical industry has really shown that this is truly a one-of-a-kind solution. There's nothing like it. And not only is there nothing like it, there has never been anything like it. It's totally new. Yeah, this is like humanity's first venture into something we've never done before. And yeah, it's so crazy that OriginTrail is at the center of rebuilding big pharmaceutical supply chains in every way, not just the tracking the vaccines at the top level, even the logistics level, the MMCS program, the multimodal compliance standard. Like, this is just history in so many different levels. And yeah, I'm just super excited for that. I had to put my energy in there. I had to.
Well, and also, I don't know if a lot of people aren't on LinkedIn. LinkedIn kind of has its own other world when it comes to a lot of the Atrus stuff, because you see a lot more stuff that BSI is putting out. And so it's really great to see a lot of the info that they're putting out there and how excited they are about this. So I know a lot of us are on Telegram and Twitter, but I encourage you to get on LinkedIn, or if you're on LinkedIn, follow BSI, because there's really a lot of great stuff they're putting out there that really gives you the other side of it. And it's great to see how impactful this is and how excited they are about it too.
Yep.
And the impact is here. So going just beyond technology, what we have done and are already achieving within this year, we're making sure that 30,000 plus patients are receiving medicines that are critical to their well-being. Essentially, if there is no such cure coming to them, they might even die. So that's the most tangible impact, and this is why we trade for. We're not doing things just because we want to build cool tech. It's mainly because we want to see impacts like that come to reality. And this is just the basis. We're going much further from here, but we got the basis right. We were checking the dashboard the other day in London together with our partners, and we got a complete overview of what's happening within this global donor organized supply chain. And it's really cool, because you see not only the number of patients that got the drug administered to, but also you can see irregularities. And then you can also, after spotting the irregularity, you can see how the correction response ensued after such irregularity was spotted. So there's so many effects, positive impacts created beyond what we currently see. And going again back to V6, what V6 is going to make even more apparent than it was in the past is that OriginTrail is not just another blockchain for supply chains. It's much more than that. It's a transformational movement, because it allows for critical information, of course, to be protected in a way made immutable and also used to inform business decision. But even more than that, critical information becomes a useful asset. And this asset is valuable. And there has been a lot of talks in the past, and I think right now it's also going to come back, as to how companies can value the data they have, and how can companies even put data as a category onto their balance sheet. And this is what OriginTrail can also support in transitioning from this, just merely using information to inform your business decision, towards encapsulating data, making it a useful and valuable asset, and potentially even putting that asset onto your balance sheet, representing the data, essentially the new oil.
When you say it like that, people may just hear like this surface level thing, companies turning data into assets, and they don't really grasp like the, excuse my French, but the absolute crazy ass bomb that is. We're talking even from the perspective of ESG, the environmental social good, right? In my research, a lot of people were actually considering ESG like a sort of like pseudo business scam kind of thing, because these companies did not have quantitative data to back up their reports. OriginTrail is making this entire thing quantifiable, making an asset data an actual part of a company's portfolio holding. It's totally insane. We've never seen this before. So yeah, I just have to tip my hat multiple times to that accomplishment.
Yeah, kudos for that. You looked well beyond the obvious. And two things when it comes to A-Trust, which are not completely and entirely obvious from the get-go, is that companies using A-Trust, they receive at least twofold of benefits after transforming information with credibility into asset. First off, if they are able to provide quantifiable information, again, encapsulated into assets, I'm using this word quite often because this is really, really important. If they have such assets, they are able to apply for tax breaks. Some countries give tax breaks to companies that are donating medicine, and without being able to prove that they have indeed been donating medicine and administered that medicine to patients, they're not able to receive that very important business benefit. On the flip side, also the business communities are demanding from the donor organization to show them quantifiable information, ergo assets, so that they decide as to where they're going to allocate their sustainability oriented investments. So the investment community also is very susceptible for that. And then you make a full circle from there on, and you're essentially encapsulating the entire world's economy. You can go any direction you want. And at the end of the day, it's not only about us, about the core development company. We have like overstretched ourselves. The cool thing right now is that we're also seeing like the businesses outside of our core venture thinking about how they're gonna take the fundamentals and run with it and apply it into so many different directions.
I also believe some people are just looking at this from the business perspective, but the social perspective is also very revolutionary. As a Black male in America, Black businesses usually want investment opportunities from larger industries that actually can prove that they support that demographic of people. All right. So when you have the OriginTrail allowing these massive organizations to finally say, hey, yes, we do have quantifiable evidence that we do support a certain community or subset of people, it actually brings enhancement to those specific demographics. It heals humanity from various levels. So there's more than just business. It's more than just making some money or making even getting some tax write-off. Not that that's bad, it's good too, but it also does help at the social and humanity level of things. So this is a protocol, a technological protocol that's having emotional impact on humanity as well. So yeah, just wanted to squeeze that in there, but let's head on to the next question. When will the Turing phase yellow paper come out?
I'm gonna take a stab at this one. The diction Turing white yellow paper was created even before the new white paper. So essentially the white paper was released instead of the Turing white paper because it was essentially released at the time when the Turing slowly began to transform into the medical phase. So essentially we can take Turing white paper as actually the white paper essentially is supplementing the Turing white paper, plus we have other documentation coming out, and all this corpus of documentation essentially can be named like Turing yellow paper, but it's not just one document, it's several documents.
All right.
Rana, can you be more specific on that, at least the other documentation, because I know you have a lot of stacks of documents in your head.
So one of the most most technical, but the richest set of documents that's coming out is the V6 updated documentation, and the idea of having all of this bundled together once we are done basically with V6 and providing this for developers, but also for anybody really wanting to learn about the technology, is this big bundle that Žiga is talking about. So together with the white paper, which explains the why and to an extent the how, all of the V6 documentation is going to be explaining really into details the how. And one of the things that I've actually been typing out on the side a little bit is the client, the latest client documentation, which is going to be coming out. So basically your SDK that you include in your app, you're going to know exactly how it works, and you're going to be able to see its code because it's open source, but also you're going to have kind of a nice, very nice set of documents. And the idea is to provide this to the widest possible number of people. So in terms of the yellow paper and the colored, let's say, approach, it's closer to the, let's say, for example, you could have seen the Ethereum yellow paper, which is very technical. So we have a lot of this technical documentation coming out, and actually I'm excited to get comments from you guys. It's been in iteration for quite some time, and the reason why it's not out is that we don't want to get feedback on an unfinished thing. So everybody's just going to be wasting energy because it fluctuates anyway. But once the spec is out, then it's going to be showtime. It's going to be very interesting. So that plus all of the RFCs that we mentioned at the beginning, both for the Parachain and the DKG, are going to be some very nice. A
lot of reading to do.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, great. I'm really interested in running a collator node. Do you have an estimation when more information about them will be released, as well as how many OTP you will need running one? And I guess also somebody in the community was asking if we can fit into the same question about the staking coming up for OTP. So what can we expect with that, maybe timeline as well or whatever?
Yeah, there's going to be RFCs for that as well. So a part of that documentation that was just Adam mentioned is also on the side of the collators. It's not a one-side answer, so it requires a little bit more space to be precise in how things are running, to go beyond what's already mentioned within the white paper. So yeah, you can definitely expect, in these busy weeks that are coming next, to have an RFC and then to have the whole process of kind of moving that from an RFC into a full-blown implementation on the mainnet. So there's going to be steps to get involved. There's going to be steps for you to kind of, I'm excited too about that process. That's going to be one of the very kind of exciting parts of the parachain. It's going to have its own life, and it's going to be a really powerful moment to bring another kind of rallying point for the OriginTrail community. And it's it'll be a lot of fun. It starts with that RFC. Once that's kind of defined, and then we can take it from there and kick ass.
I think there's just one question left, Amos, that I think you were going to.
Oh, yes, actually, yes, sir. That's correct. Sorry about that. Yes. So we do know that the bounty had a $250,000 TRAC bounty pool. Since the price has gone down since then, relatively speaking, I guess this question, it's a lottery, so it's paraphrasing. The prices went down since the bounty has been issued. Thus, those participating in the bounty should theoretically be getting less than they, typically would have. So is there plans to increase the bounty size to compensate that fall in price, or et cetera, take it away.
I know it's not polite to answer a question with a question, but had we seen a price significantly increase, would be expected to decrease the number of the bounty pot that exists. I think from my perspective, it's a portion of the network or the portion of the entire trace emission that you're getting. There's never going to be more than the existing 500 million, and in the percentage of the contribution or the percentage towards the entire emission, that still remained constant. So I think it's markets are, and you guys have had a chance to kind of seen a lot of stuff happen over the years, and we've had our share of experiences across the different market, and the one thing that really is kind of like the best investment, really, at least from what we've seen and what we've learned, is to have that investment in learning how the technology works, learning how we can improve it, learning how to leverage it, and then work from there. And so I think that's the by far most valuable thing coming out of that. The bounty, again, as a portion of the entire emission, remain the same, and I think that from that perspective, I see it as that to be not to be the incentive from the first point even to kind of get involved is just for the bounty. It's rather for that kind of learning, communally learning thing that we're achieving with that, and help that somehow answers the sentiment around.
It was a brilliant answer, Tomaž. Don't worry about it. It was brilliant. In fact, I may be hiring you for any legal issues I run into. Thank you. Right. I think we're out of questions today, but Jason's gonna take the show.
That was great, guys. We look forward to it. So next month, let's keep an eye out on all those RFCs, because I think there's going to be a lot more information there for everybody. So I'm sure that's going to answer a lot of questions as well. And,
look out for Project Magnify as well.
Yep.
Next week, stage 2.
Oh man, it's like there's gonna be content happening so much. We could have like a deep downs happening very, very often. I think still we'll be able to cover it all. It's a big jump that's coming. So and it's very close. So it's a very nice summer from my perspective. I'm very excited to see this new beefed up version of OriginTrail coming to fruition and just opening up impact on the societal level, on the technical level, on the level of business models and financial opportunities. It's just an all-around exciting time to get involved and to see what really speaks to you best, and how to kind of get submerged into this new sea of opportunities erupting here. But I'm pumped.
Great. And if everybody's been like lazy like me, well, I've just been really busy. Make sure you claim your OTP tokens like ASAP, like Branimir was saying, just so you'll guarantee to get them, in timely fashion, and it's going to be easier for these guys when they have to do stuff on the back end to make that happen. So make sure you go out there and claim your tokens. And with that being said, thanks everybody. Another great office hours, and it's crazy hot here. So I have to go somewhere here, and I'm gonna go hit the pool. So
have a good one, everyone.
So everybody stay
Have
cool.
a nice weekend.
You too.
Have a nice one.
Cheers, everybody.
You guys. Love everyone.
Happy
Woo!
summer.
Let's go. Give me that outro music. Let's go. Yeah. DT, you're amazing. You know that? You're a good guy. I love you, man.
See you, folks.
All right. Bye.
Trace on. Bye-bye.